Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. The purpose of my channel is that we learn and we progress together. My today's topic is a very important topic. It is about Lean Six Sigma. As we know, all the organizations, either they are for-profit organization, not-for-profit organization, small or big, they all have systems and processes. Our today's topic, Lean Six Sigma, will help us to understand how we can improve processes in any organization. I'm very excited to have Kashan Awais today with us. He's our guest, and we will learn from him what is Lean Six Sigma, what are the basics, and how we can use this approach to improve our processes in any organization. Kashan Awais is MBA from the University of Montreal. He is a chartered professional in human resources, Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, and Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. Welcome to the show, Kashan.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Kashan. Really appreciate. Why not we start with the basic principles and understand what exactly Lean Six Sigma is and what are the critical applications of Lean Six Sigma.
Thank you. So let me start with a very basic concept here. You must have heard the term, whatever gets measured gets managed, right? So the same goes with processes. If you don't have a system or a mechanism in place to measure your processes, you will not really be able to manage them effectively. So the approach that Lean and Six Sigma, the approach that this philosophy adopts is to measure the processes, analyze it in thorough detail to understand what needs to be removed from the process to make it more efficient. So, and I'll give you an overview of both philosophies one by one, both Lean and Six Sigma. When you talk about lean, it essentially means literally the same thing that the word says, lean, which means that the process does not have any, clunky components attached to it. So if a process involves, moving from step A to step B, it should be able to do so from A to B. If it is going towards, there's so many other things involved, A to B to C to D and E and then back to B, it's inefficient. So Lean takes all those unnecessary activities out of the process, makes it more efficient. And the benefit is that, decision making is fast. The process time is fast. The cycle time is fast. Essentially, your process is way more effective and way more efficient than it used to be before you implemented the Lean approach. Lean Six Sigma, essentially both the approaches work towards the same purpose, to improve the quality of a process. I talked about Lean. It eliminates wastage and non-value added activities. If you talk about Six Sigma, again, back to the measurement concept, you measure the process from statistical perspective. You need to do some analyses about the variation. You need to identify the causes of variation. And some variation is natural in a process, other is not. So we need to identify that out of the ordinary variation from the process and put some mechanism or some system in place which eliminates that variation and makes the process standard deviation narrower and narrower.
Thanks, Kashan. That is very helpful. Now I understand, along with my audience, what exactly Lean Six Sigma is. My next question to you is that how Lean Six Sigma is relevant to finance and accounting professionals?
That's indeed a great question. I would, in fact, like to answer it in two parts. The first is that regardless of if a project relates to finance or accounting, it has a financial aspect associated with it, right? Because whatever project you're initiating within your function or your department or your organization, it is measured like even the feasibility or the business case is based on its positive net present value and other financial indicators. So that's the first relevance that is with finance, any project that involves Lean and Six Sigma. Secondly, if you talk about processes within the accounting and finance profession function itself, you can think of any process that is measurable. Let's talk about accounts payable. It's a process within the accounting function which is measurable. You measure it using the KPIs or the indicators of what is the time when you received an invoice and the time you paid it out. So the time between the 2 points is actually your KPI. So this is a process you can measure, means this is a process in which you can implement Lean and Six Sigma. So if you implement methodologies and approaches that cut out the non-value adding activities, they cut out the waste, they reduce the variability of the process, and they reduce or shrink the time between the invoice was received and was paid off. That's the benefit that you've got directly as a result of implementing Lean and Six Sigma. So yeah, this is just one example in which you can see how it can be relevant to and it can benefit the accounting and finance function.
Thanks, Kashan. I think now I understand better how important Lean Six Sigma is for our profession and for other professionals as well as, for example, engineers working in various organizations. My third question for you is, can you please share an example of the actual implementation of Lean Six Sigma in any organization which you might have implemented and how the process looks like?
Yeah, actually, there will be plenty. I would just skip the manufacturing because it's more easy to understand. You can relate more to how wastage can be reduced from a manufacturing process. I would actually give an example of an administrative process. So I was working on this project where I was implementing a lean approach. The process was really clunky. It was a big organization with thousands of employees and so many different moving parts in the larger system. So there were so many steps involved in that particular process. And person A would receive some information, would hand it off to person B. Person B would collect some additional pieces of information, send it to person C, and it was a long chain. And the thing is that person A didn't know what the person B was going to do with the information, and the person B didn't know what the person C was going to do with the information, and so forth. So that lack of visibility, that siloed approach, and the culture, everything put together, the impact of all this was that there were so many activities within the process at large which were not adding any value into the process at all, right? So, but of course, when people were working on those sub-processes or those steps, which didn't add any value, but they were still working on it, it means that they were investing their time and their effort into those steps, which means there was a cost associated with everything that was being done. So after the implementation of the process, once we mapped the process, and it's, by the way, it's a very important tool when you want to analyze a process. Everybody understands a process map just at a glance, right? If I was to narrate a process which was written down in a text form in SOP, and I would read it out 10 pages, by the end of when I reached the end of the 10th page, you probably wouldn't even remember what I was talking about. But if I was to capture the same process in a process map, you would be able to take a glance at it and you would be able to tell how many steps are involved, how many swim lanes are there, how many actors are involved, and how many touch points are there, right? So based on this visual tool, you can understand way better as to what the inefficiencies are within that given process. Anyways, coming back to the point, once we identified all those inefficiencies and all those wastages essentially all those steps were a waste because they were doing nothing to the process in terms of its value. Once we reduced that, it reduced the overall processing time by 68 to 70%, which means that the cost was reduced by this amount. So now you can understand the importance of how it can impact the implementation of a project, a Lean Six Sigma project, how it can impact towards the profitability of your business. Either you could do it by reducing your costs, or you can do it by improving your profitability. Like, it's basically two sides of the same coin. So yeah, this is one example that I find it was very, very relevant for our audience today.
Thank you. That's very very important to know, because once we start implementing in our organizations, it helps to understand what to expect when we are going through the implementation of Lean Six Sigma. So thank you. Another important question comes to my mind, Kashan, is that how much cost and effort is involved in the implementation of Lean Six Sigma?
I love the question coming from a finance professional, very relevant. So that's amazing. So in terms of the cost, basically any organization that wants to implement Lean Six Sigma methodology or wants to establish a Lean Six Sigma team, all the cost that they have to endure is basically the cost of training. That's about it. There's no capital, there's no infrastructure involved. All what you have to do is to train your teams, and that's about it. So, in terms of the dollar amount, it varies from program to program. For example, ASQ programs, they start for yellow belt trainings, they start from $4,000 per session for the yellow belt training, complete training program, which could be attended in a batch. Another thing that I would like to mention here, the proviso here is that an organization that is looking forward to implementing Lean Six Sigma as an approach within their organization, like organization-wide on a larger scale, there needs to be a certain culture in place. That's very important. And the reason is that Lean Six Sigma relies a lot on something that is called Kaizen, continuous improvement. The idea is that nobody can tell you better about continuous improvement and how you can make tiny little tweaks and adjustments into your process than the people who are working hands-on on that process, the frontline staff. So if you have a culture in which frontline staff feels comfortable in coming to you, the management, and sharing their ideas and suggestions, then sure, the project, the Lean Six Sigma project or the initiative is going to find success. But if you have a culture which is, which inhibits open communication, which does not encourage people to cross, hierarchical boundaries and share their thoughts and ideas, then probably you'll have to work on that piece first before you could think about truly benefiting from Lean Six Sigma methodology. So to summarize it, both financial and cultural aspects, you need to be considerate of both.
Oh, that's very good to know. It gives us some clarity how much cost and effort is involved from the range perspective. I think that's very helpful. And then maybe for today, the last but not least question I have is what is the easiest way for us as professionals to learn about Six Sigma and also be ready to implement it in our organizations?
So if you as an individual, or if you as a leader of an organization who wants to have their teams trained in Lean Six Sigma methodology, you can do it in a number of ways. You can approach and contact a reputed service provider, like I do provide Lean Six Sigma training and certification. What I would like to point out here is that Lean Six Sigma is not regulated. Okay, so you need to be mindful that you're not being so cost considerate that you're paying peanuts and get a certification which is of no worth. You have to look for quality, because if you want your teams to really make a difference within your organization, you would want them to be trained by a professional who's trained himself or herself, right? So just be watchful of which programs are reputed, which programs have a robust structure. For example, a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt program, including the project. And by the way, the project is very important because it's essentially a project management level certification. So any training that has some aspect of working on a project, whether it's a real project for a corporate program or a simulation, but it does need to have a project in place for the certification to program to complete. So be watchful of that. Lean Six Sigma Black Belt program, like I was saying, you have to put in about 120-ish, 140-ish hours to get that certification, including your study, including your project, and including your exams and everything. So you cannot, sign up a program online which gives you, 4 hours of lectures and you become a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. That's not going to be worth anything. So sign up for a program that is reputed, which has a solid program structure, and which has for green and black belt certification levels, which has a project evaluation system in place.
Thanks, Kashan, for your time. It was really fantastic to learn about this topic. I have been thinking for a number of years actually to understand more about Six Sigma, how it can help me in my career progression, my organization. So I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you so much, Saqib, for having me. It was indeed a pleasure. And it's always a pleasure whenever I try to speak in a forum, whether it's an event or if I'm giving a lecture at my university or whatever. It's always a pleasure because I love to share my perspective. And for anybody who's viewing, I really hope that the information is going to come in handy when they're going to make some big decisions about how to develop themselves for their career progression, or to find a project that they want to initiate within their organization and add value for their company or to their own professional development. So yeah, thank you so much once again.
Everyone, if you really would like to understand more, learn more about Lean Six Sigma, or if you need any help with regard to implementation of Lean Six Sigma in your organization, please reach out to Kashan Awais at the email address which you can see on the screen. Thank you very much. Take care and have a great day.